First off, let's just say it's been a while and I've missed you guys. I've missed doing this. And what better movie to come back and do a review for other than James Gunn's Superman? It's the talk of the last 2 weeks. I got my own thoughts on it. This is going to be a spoiler review of the film. I'm not going to touch too much into the spoilers besides a few things, but the movie's been out for a few weeks now. Everyone's had a chance to see it. I just want to give my 2 cents and tell you, hey, it's a fun movie and you should try to go see it if, make your own opinion. Don't listen to anybody on the internet, including myself. It's nice to hear other people's thoughts to give you an idea of what it sounds like, but don't let it dictate because this person said they don't like it, so I don't like it. I will tell you this is the funnest I've had in a movie in a long time, and this is the first movie in a long time that's made me feel complete joy and happiness by the end of the film. That being said, quick overview of life. I've been busy welcoming our newborn son. He is now 4 months old, working 2 jobs, 3 kids. Life's crazy. Trying to get back on track with this stuff because I do enjoy bringing this content to you guys. I know this, channel's slowly been building even when I'm not producing content. So that's pretty cool. But I am going to say this, over this next week, I am going to put out a few more videos. I do go on vacation this Saturday, and when I do come back, we're going to hit the ground running and doing this a little bit more. That being said, let's get into this review, shall we? I'm going to kind of keep this short and sweet. That's usually what goes well into these videos. And I'm just going to go off the top of my head. I did write something down. I'm going to, jot off of it, which I wrote down like literally a week and a half ago when I saw this film. But with that being said, I want you guys to know I am someone that truly enjoyed Man of Steel, Zack Snyder's vision, and someone who truly loves this film as well. They are completely different tones, completely different Supermen, completely different stories. Everything is completely different from Man of Steel to Superman 2025. If you are someone that is a Snyder fan and are just so hooked on, I'm not going to see this movie because I want the Snyderverse to come back, you're just going to be stuck there. They're not bringing it back. This movie is the stepping stone for the new DCU, and I believe that you guys should give it a chance. And with that being said, the reason I think you should give it a chance is because for you guys that Man of Steel is your Superman, you did not read the comics. Granted, what they did with Superman at that time was better than what we've gotten anything in the past, in my opinion. Like, it was visually impressive. I do love Henry Cavill. However, David Corenswet persuades Superman in a good way and is actually ripped off a comic book. My biggest positives of this film is that it does throw you right into this universe. Like, James Gunn doesn't shy away. He tells you at the beginning of this film, metahumans has been around for 300 years. Superman's in his 30s. He's been doing this for about 3 years, and the opening line, the last line that they show, this was the first time he lost in 3 years. That, at the beginning of the film, made me feel, it was interesting. I don't know how else to describe it besides it made me feel something, which is very vague, but if you've not seen this film, I'm going to tell you this, you won't understand it unless you go see it. Now, is this film for everybody? No, it's definitely not. It has its flaws, in my opinion. However, it's probably my favorite film of the year so far. Going over to positives, like I said, let's start with the cast. David Corenswet, Guy Gardner, Nathan Fillion was great. The guy that plays Mr. Terrific's great. Like I said, I don't have my notes in front of me. We're just going to go off the top of the head. Mr. Terrific steals the show. He has one scene, and I believe everybody knows what it is. Great James Gunn type directing. Reminds you of a Yondu scene from the Guardians. It was amazing. People's been hating on Krypto. I thought Krypto was an interesting choice to bring into this first film, but by the end of the film, it makes total sense, and it gets you more excited where he goes with Supergirl. Rachel as Lois Lane has been probably my favorite Lois so far. Her dynamic, her and Lois and Clark's dynamic in this film, even just a 12-minute conversation I had towards the beginning of the film was just perfect in my sense, and it shows you their chemistry and exactly what they were setting for these characters. Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult, people are mixed with him. I think he did a fabulous job. Shows exactly the type of Lex Luthor I want in this universe, and as James Gunn said recently in his interview, this is just the beginning. We see glimpses of potentially Lex, suit that he wears in the comics that might pop up down the road. Spoiler alert right now, Ultraman turned out to be Superman's clone, which he ends up getting knocked out and sent to a black hole, who could eventually turn into Bizarro, which would make a lot of sense, and even James Gunn's kind of played coy with it. But that's most likely what they're setting up, is these small stones. You don't have to really know what's going on in any other of the movies that they're making, but it sets up pieces, and that's kind of what he's setting up, is this big universe with these small pieces. Like Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl, they're going to be in Peacemaker Season 2 coming out here soon. Same with his brother who plays Maxwell Lord. Guy Gardner's going to show up in the Lantern show that's coming out next year. They said there was going to be a surprise cameo at the end of Peacemaker. I could see it being Superman or Mr. Terrific, in my opinion. And I guess Peacemaker is also going to set up and show us exactly what this story, the bigger story of this universe, at least this first phase or chapter you want to call it, is going to be. My automatic first best guess is I honestly believe Gorilla Grodd is going to be the big villain. I'm taking a big hunch. James Gunn said it's going to be out of left field. No one's going to guess it. He said we've already seen the character. I believe we saw a glimpse of him in Creature Commandos. I really do truly believe that's where it's heading to, and would make sense with James Gunn's, rap sheet of creating these animal characters. So that's my guess. But back to this film. Like I said, overall, characters was great. The pacing of the film was amazing. Like I said, the first 20 minutes, I was kind of, waiting, and then it just sucked me in. It drops you right there. It's like a comic book. It's exactly like a comic book. It goes from page to page. And that's where some of the gripes come in. He's not shy from just throwing whatever in this film without any explanation. Such as, Lex needing a distraction to get into his Fortress of Solitude, so he has his goons throw a random monster at night that they say will, grow, turns into that giant kaiju he ends up fighting, but they don't really just explain where the hell he got it, unless I missed a sentence. And that's a big thing with this film. Like, I truly want to go see it a few more times because there's so many details you could miss. Surprises? I don't really think there's any surprises. Like I said, from the get-go, I always felt like Ultraman was going to be a clone of him. The biggest shock, I think, and pop from my theater was the surprise cameo Peacemaker during an interview, which I thought was great. And then Supergirl showing up at the end and leading into her film, which makes a lot of sense, and that's what kills me with the gripe with that character. If you've not read Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, then you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. You should probably shut the hell up, my opinion. Give it a chance. I feel like people are just hating on this film just to hate on this film. And a lot of them, I highly doubt they've seen it. Overall, like I said, this film is fun, entertaining, has action throughout, great characters. The biggest twist I've seen that I'm on the fence still about, but I actually don't mind it because the characters aren't that important in my view, besides, Superman's biological parents, Jor-El and I can't remember his mom's name. James Gunn switched it and said, he was sent here to pretty much rule Earth, impregnate people, and start Krypton again. It makes sense because their planet died. They have no clue what Earth is. They know he's going to be powerful here. Besides that, I don't know if they knew anything else. They, in their minds, were trying to set up a better life for their son and also create, that Kryptonian bloodline again. But on the other hand, that it's rarely happened in the comics. But at the same time, they are just his biological parents. They send him to Earth and they die. So it didn't change Superman's character. It built on to who raised him, which was, Paul and Ma Kent, who I think were portrayed very well in this film, and had one, between him and Paul Kent was one of the more emotional scenes. And that's what kind of got me at the end when they have him, play the message of his parents. It ends up being his, adopted parents. I teared up and just felt complete joy and loved it. But overall, like I said, I give this film an 8.5 out of 10. With that being said, there is some gripes. My gripes: I wish this film was about 30 minutes longer. It could have fleshed it out a little bit more. Because at times it does feel like there's a little bit too much squeezed in at this time. Hawk Girl, I didn't mind her, but she was probably the least amount of things to do, and she just didn't really have much dialogue, and it felt like more screaming than dialogue with her, and I just didn't really care for that. Like I said, Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner were great. I did also enjoy how they portrayed Superman and Clark Kent. How he was trying to save everybody. Saving the squirrel was silly. However, it shows exactly how much he cares about every living thing, and that's who Superman is. His dialogue with Lex at the end was beautiful. Lex's plan, I thought, was pretty well worked out in what he was trying to do. I don't think it was overall like a masterpiece, but I do believe this, for a first film, wasn't too bad. I see a lot of people griping that Superman gets his butt kicked at times. That happens in the comics. I don't want to go watch Superman just beat everybody's ass and be fine. So I don't mind seeing a lesser strong Superman if it gives better storytelling. And lastly, I think the only other gripe I had, I thought there was going to be more pushback from how the superheroes they have in this world already, and they might be saving the story, but I thought that was what I originally heard this film was going to be kind of strictly on. They didn't really touch on that. Even Maxwell Lord, he was only in a interview for like 10 seconds of a film. So that might be something they're saving, but just a few other little details I did enjoy that James Gunn involved was just that portrayal of Superman and how he was trying to save animals, save everybody, how he was trying to even save a cashew that Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific was just like scuffing at him because he cared. I think the only other negative I can really say is maybe, besides Lex Luthor, the villains were kind of given what to do, but not really given much to do. Like the engineer, she was pretty cool. She did have one scene where it's towards the beginning of the film where they break into the Fortress of Solitude, and she kind of transforms and turns around when literally it felt like that was just something cool, but there was really no point. So I thought that was like a little thing. And Ultraman at times, like I said, he's just pretty much Lex's weapon and bodyguard, which wasn't a big deal. But Ultraman and the Engineer, not really impressive villains. They were there to serve a purpose, and they served it, which isn't a bad thing. However, the only last thing I'll say is the CGI at times. It is very cartoonish at times, and like people have pointed out, and I'll point it out too, there's some scenes, you can easily see it, which isn't a lot of movies now. But at the end of the day, when you're spending $250 million on a comic book movie, and it's your first film in a new universe, you would want to spend more time polishing it up, cleaning it up, and making sure, especially when in the first 10 minutes, there's a terrible scene where you can see his shoe turn into like a clown shoe. Like, I don't know. That's just a gripe of mine. I just wish some of these films, I've heard Fantastic Four coming out has amazing CGI, but it also has some parts here and there that sucks. But comparative, I feel like Fantastic Four sounds like it's going to be better looking than this film. And that's where that kind of sucks, because you had all this time to set this up, just cleaning the film up, or give yourself enough time for the VFX crew to make it better. But besides that, like I said, my last thoughts, I ain't gonna spend too much time. I think it's a great way to open up the DCU. I think James Gunn is cooking. Not everybody's gonna agree with it. James Gunn isn't for everybody, but in my opinion, I don't think he's made a bad film. Guardians trilogy was great. Suicide Squad was great. Peacemaker was great. I love Superman. I feel like he's setting up this universe smartly by not pushing things and not fast tracking things. He's not greenlighting anything till a script he read is very good. I think Supergirl is going to do great. I do feel like they need to lower some of the budgets to start with and kind of build their way up, because It just depends. Like right now, this film isn't doing great overseas for whatever reason. Domestically, it's doing pretty well, and the DC, heads are happy about it because of the reviews and the critic scores, and it's making some decent money. But it's either gonna hit, barely make it anything, or might make a little bit less, which isn't a terrible thing right now. It's not gonna cancel DCU right off the bat. It's gonna, I think over these next 2 or 3 years, it determines how people critically look at these films and movies and shows, and how much money they make. I don't think it's all just on Superman, like James Gunn said. That being said, though, if you've not watched this film, give it a chance. It's a little bit over 2 hours. I honestly thought it was shorter than that, because by the time it was over, I was like, what the hell, I want more. It went by so fast. I don't want you guys to listen to me just because I say this movie's amazing. I want you to go see this movie just because if you like comic book films and this type of character, James Gunn, etc., go make your own opinion. If you go see it and you hate it, that's fine. But I really do believe that if you haven't seen this because you're listening to other people, you're just not doing yourself a favor. But with that being said, next video I'm going to work on, James Gunn did come out and say a bunch of stuff about the DCU, and Kevin Feige also came out and said a bunch of things about the Marvel Universe. I want to do a quick video on that, which that should be coming out here in the next day or two, and I will have my review for Fantastic Four up on Thursday. I will have those 2 out before I go on vacation, I promise you that. With that being said, if you've not liked this channel, subscribe to this channel, please do so. It helps. Like the video, leave me a comment, tell me if you enjoyed Superman or if you hated it, tell me why you loved it or hated it. That being said, love you guys, see you guys next time.